Whether the North Korea-U.S. negotiations will become a window of opportunity or an occasion that will hasten the crisis will depend on the United States, says North Korea's ambassador to the UN, as he blames Washington for a failure to restart stalled talks. Speaking at the UN General Assembly in New York, Pyongyang's UN diplomat, in essence, urged the U.S. to come to the upcoming denuclearization negotiations with a new proposal that would be acceptable to Pyongyang. Our Seung-jae has our top story.
On the final day of the annual gathering of world leaders at the United Nations on Monday, North Korea's ambassador to the UN, Kim Seung, called for the full implementation of the statement issued by the leaders of North Korea and the U.S. after their first summit in Singapore last year.
The relations between the DPRK and the U.S. have made little progress so far, and the situation on the Korean Peninsula has not come out of the vicious cycle of increased tension, which is entirely attributable to the political and military provocations perpetrated by the U.S.
Kim says it's up to Washington to turn any future nuclear talks into a window of opportunity or an occasion that will hasten the crisis. And in order to improve the chance of striking a nuclear deal, he said Washington needs to come to nuclear talks with a new proposal.
Comrade Kim Jong-un, chairman of the State Affairs Commission, in his historical policy speech stated the position that there was a need for the U.S. to put aside its current method of calculation and approach us with a new one, and we wait with patience for a courageous decision from the U.S.
Last month, Pyongyang expressed its willingness to resume working-level talks in late September, saying it believes the U.S. will come up with a mutually acceptable proposal. However, last week, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told reporters that no meetings had been scheduled, but the U.S. stands ready to restart talks anytime. The North Korean envoy also criticized the South Korean government, accusing it of double-dealing. He said Seoul entered into inter-Korean agreements last year only to deploy ultra-modern U.S. weapons and hold joint military exercises with Washington this year.
It is attributable to the double-dealing behavior of the South Korean authorities, who performed the act of a handshake of peace before all, but behind the scenes introduced ultra-modern offensive weapons and held joint military exercise with the United States, targeting the DPRK.
Despite earlier speculation that the UN gathering could set the stage for high-level talks between Pompeo and his North Korean counterpart Lee Yong-ho, Lee was absent this year after being present at the previous 3 UN events. Seung-jae, Arirang News.